Hello, hello, everyone. It is Kenyon here, Basketball Rewind. I'm joined by Beyond the Locker Room. I'm also joined by Trey, the best guy from really Raptors Republic on the best podcast because it's the pull up Trey. uh, Trey, first of all, how are you doing? It's really good to have you back, really. You've been on here a couple times. This time we're not talking about 2K for sure. Maybe in a
G.
couple months we might be
His
talking
man,
about
his man
2K.
got paid, man. His man got paid. Come on
Which,
now.
which guy is this? Which guy is this?
OG, man.
Oh, true.
All that dinero, man. You think
I
That's
told I told you he was gonna get paid. You didn't believe me.
you did. You said he's
yes,
gonna get that money. Yes. I give you your due, sir. You said he's gonna
yes.
get 40 million. I was like, woo.
Well,
No,
I
yeah,
can't
he's got a
remember
$76 billion contract to be sitting in the wings. No, I did not expect that.
that is true. Yeah, it's always the strong silent types. Got to be careful. But I guess in no particular order. I guess we're gonna quickly talk about Precious. Were you a Precious guy? Because he didn't get his contract.
That's true. I
I got
I
that one right.
I do like Precious. I just think that the challenge is that the offense was such a drastic change, and he was just like one of the casualties of it. Like they tried to put him in those actions where he could see if he could operate a dribble handoff and like use his athleticism, but like he just doesn't have the processing skills for it, and it didn't work out.
Yeah. I was gonna go back to you, Trey, about this. Are we at a stage in Precious's career where it's like I ain't say it's dire, but it's getting late early, as Yogi Berra used to say. Like you're 4 years into this, and now two teams, pretty much, three teams. You count Miami, have said, "Nah, we'll pass." Like you're getting to be an end of rotation type of dude at this point. If I'm looking at this, I'm being honest. I'm not trying to pick on Precious. I'm just looking at the career span when you get these type of scenarios. The next contract, you're just a dude that's the 10th, 11th, 12th guy on a bench at this point, man. Because like three teams in
Certainly
four
goes
years.
fast.
Yeah, no, that's completely fair. I think Precious is an NBA player. Like the defense pops off every time he gets minutes. He rebounds the ball really well, and you saw with the Knicks, like when he's finishing really well, he's a force and very impactful player. I think it like to what you said, it is running its course where teams probably won't be signing him to invest in his development, which is tough.
Mm-hmm. That's the cruel part of the NBA or any professional sports league, man. When these moments start coming, and you have to have these hard talks with your family, and your agent's gonna give you some hard talks. Like, here's the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it goes really really fast. Really quickly before we go and continue on Raptors stuff, we have some interesting news related to Team Canada. Of course, the Warriors are playing hardball, or we'll say it's mutual, or who knows what's going on with Wiggins. But at some level, he's not going to be playing for Team Canada as far as we know. I don't know if there's a way around this. If it is mutual, it's a little bit disappointing for some of the push that he made. I think on one of the conversations with S, where he kind of teased out that he would be playing. It's like if it is the case that it is mutual, and he kind of floated out there that watch out, and then he's saying, well, I'm worried about my ankle. The Olympics only comes around so often. So before we get to the other information about Team Canada, I'm just wondering, I'll start with you, Trey, first, but your thoughts about Wiggins. Again, I don't know what it is, because it's like a few things relate to the Raptors where you really don't know, information's coming from all over the place.
From the Team Canada side, it doesn't appear very mutual. It's tough because he was in a trade situation, obviously, that looks like it likely blew up. Paul George is going to be a Warrior now. They just waived Chris Paul, but
I saw that.
he was a casualty of it seems like he was a casualty of them thinking they had that trade in the bank, and now they've likely taken away his last opportunity to make the Olympics. Hopefully they allow him to play now that that situation is a bit more clear. But I think it could have been a sort of a redemption story for him because he's been like characterized in a way like as the guy, one of the core guys that didn't want to play for Canada for several years. And this was a chance for him to play on this team, which is probably the best team they've ever had, and compete for a medal. And now that chance is likely gone. So it really sucks.
It does, and especially since you have guys that would naturally potentially fill that void, in a sense that he could potentially give you, at least from an offensive standpoint, are out because of injuries. Guys like Ben Mathurin, Shaden Sharp, they would have been interesting to have on this team. Of course, we know that they're around. They're maybe committed to the program long term, perhaps, but maybe this year isn't their year. Same with Leonard Miller, who got, I think, injured last year during some of their scrimmages, unfortunately. So the other person's obviously Zach Edey, but beyond, do you have anything else to add to the Wiggins stuff, really?
Yeah, this really burns me on a number of levels. I think one, Trey brought one in this case, and I totally agree with him. He's been kind of pegged at this guy who doesn't want to play for Team Canada. When the irony is, and actual fact is, he's played for Team Canada more recently than Jamal Murray, right? Like, people don't realize that. Like, honestly, like Wiggins, the best I ever seen Wiggins play was playing for Team Canada in Victoria, even more so than even the Warriors finals. He was unreal in that tournament. And to think that I agree with Trey in this one. I don't buy this mutual crap. That's a save face because you know what? I gotta live with you, right? I still gotta come back to you in September. So he's just making nice. But when it's all said and done, all arrows are pointing that he's gonna play. Every single thing, from Rowan's comments to his comments, to the fact that he got named to the team, the train. You're not naming a guy on a team, considering how many guys we know that were begging for invitation and just gonna throw out one there and say, oh, we're going to put Wiggins in the team. Now, the last part I'll say is this idea in this case is save face for Golden State. I know you mentioned the part with Clay, but as far as I'm concerned, it's the same deal. Okay, they can use USA basketball as a front for that one for Clay, but it's the same nonsense there too. But when it's all said and done, this is Steve Kerr and that group doing a lot of dirty pool behind the scenes. I'll say it. That's my name. I'm putting on y'all name. I'm saying it. I already tweeted to Steve Kerr, so he knows who I am already. I've said it to him and the Warriors. I tagged both of them. They're up to no good. It smells like crap. I'm going to state it. It smells like crap. Because when it's once, like say it's a coincidence. When it's once, it's like, two, coincidence no more. All right? Because that Bahamian team, you get Klay Thompson on there, that ain't no team to be messing with. They would arguably have the two best shooters not named Steph Curry in the tournament. Okay. And all of a sudden now, it's like, well, with Klay, we want Klay back, and also they let guys play all sorts of ways. Guys get suspended like Draymond Green, they don't care. Steph Curry, if he can play, he'll play. And they don't care. And all of a sudden now they're thinking, well, the well-being of the team. Get out of here with that crap with Klay. If Klay becomes a Warrior in 10 minutes, a Magic in 10 minutes, what's the excuse then, right? Like, literally, most could come on here and say Klay Thompson's an Orlando Magic in 10 minutes. And then what are we going to say then? It's still USA basketball? Same thing with Wiggins. The last chance he might have to play, he's 29 years old. He might get to play off a bench when he's 33, perhaps. But that's really disgusting, man. I don't really like how they went about that, man. Because nobody else is dealing with the situation around the league. Nobody else. Everyone's letting their guys play if they want to play.
Yeah, I think it might be longer than that because it's each thing cycles every 4. So he's going to be on. It's going to be in 8 years.
What is he, 29 now?
Yeah, it'll be in 8 years though.
Why would it be 8 years?
No, it'd be
4 years. It's Olympics. Yeah.
I thought it was every 4 years. I'm thinking of the old method. Yeah. Sorry.
Well,
Back in my day.
That was 20 hours a day, man. 'Cause I'm trying to think what that is.
Yeah.
He never playing.
Just waiting forever.
So there's FIBA still, and there's one more Olympics. Perhaps he might have a shot, but he wouldn't be the same caliber or as important as a player at that stage. But I don't like what they did to him. I don't like what they're doing to Clay, man. I think it was bushly.
Yeah, I don't know why Team USA has to pull out all the stops that they have to when they literally are gathering the Avengers, to take down.
Right. What are you frightened of?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here?
So, but yeah, I guess this is the game we play. Maybe we'll have to tamper in the in the future.
Once you get some Canadian execs in this stage here, might be able to do something.
Exactly. So, and also with the Zach Edey news, it's interesting because you almost wonder, in other cases, maybe Chris Boucher. I know Chris Boucher didn't do the best job of advocating for himself publicly as others have to play, but it would have been, it seems like we're still a big short. I know Zach Edey wasn't necessarily slated to play the most amount of minutes, but it's the one weakness that I think we have.
Well, okay, let me push it back to you guys then. If they knew that already, Barrett and company already knew that Edey might not play then, why didn't you give invitation to Tristan Thompson?
Well, Tristan didn't end up making the camp after.
That's what I'm saying.
It seemed like he wanted to play, just like because he was determined to be in camp. He said he'd want to play,
Yeah.
and then when you get drafted, has no idea what team is going to draft him, and then after that, he gets consultation. It does suck, but it makes sense that they want him to play in summer league. They want him to be around their guys for the summer, learn their system. If he does go to Paris, he's gone for X amount of weeks that could have been used to get ready for the season. So that one makes sense to some degree.
I totally agree with Trey. And if you look at some of the other top guys that in theory could play for their national teams, they're not doing so, right? Sarr's not playing for France. Richer is not playing for France. You keep going down the list of some other top players for their countries, they're not doing so. I don't think even, Topic just hurt. So, but all I'm saying is there's a precedent that Trey's mentioned that is there. It's like, okay, I can live with that. But if you knew that was a possibility, I don't know why you didn't invite Tristan Thompson. That still ain't answered that question. I don't understand what Canada basketball is doing on that front.
Is TT good though?
Here's what he's good at. Okay, I hear you, Trey.
I was joking. I said he's juiced up, ready to go. That's a bad joke.
You could let that one go, huh? You could let that one go. You could just keep that offline.
I knew, man. He was just playing too well for him.
You start seeing a windmill like Vince on dudes. He's ready to go.
Right. I'm just saying Tristan Thompson knows how to play physical basketball, which is you got to teach some guys that. He just knows how to do it. And he's 6 fouls that for the most part, he could play. Even this year, as much as we want to tease, some of the best minutes that Cleveland had in the front court was when he was out there. The year before against Denver, he played Jokic probably better than anybody else for the Lakers.
Well, he has been. If you're looking for a vet, he's been a bit of a vet for Canada basketball, and he's given a lot of years back when not a lot of people were. So I think from that standpoint, maybe there's a case for it, for sure. So.
And he's just a rugged front court player that we just don't have.
Mm-hmm.
The grown men playing out there, man, they swallow whistles out in international basketball. They give you there's no foul merchants out there going out there. There ain't no James Hardens. You wonder why Harden don't play for the Olympic team? Ain't no. So, give you no breaks out there.
So I'll say this too. With the E thing, it's interesting because if I'm not mistaken, the exhibition with Team USA is in Las Vegas. Couldn't he just walk over to the next conference center and like after getting a sweat?
I don't know, man. The politics in this case is getting ridiculous, man.
It really is interesting. So, I mean, after moving along with Team Canada, I'm sure. I mean, we have enough guys. I think Trey Lyles is probably the next in line from a big standpoint. It's not great, but I mean, instead of Zach Edey, at least, we need a body. At this point. So I don't know, Trey, I know Beyond and I have given our thoughts as to our potential starting lineup, but at least for those two being out, who are the two replacements for you?
In terms of replacements and making the team, I think would be Kyle Alexander. Kyle Alexander played really well for their FIBA team. He rebounds the ball really well, and because the court is a lot smaller, like some of the athletic limitations that may stop him from being in the NBA isn't really a thing in FIBA. So I think that makes sense. On the perimeter, it's a bit tough because they have a few guys that are just injured. You have Mathurin that's hurt, Shaden as well.
The assumption is, Trey, I assume that Nemhard's on this team now for sure.
He's
already guaranteed a spot.
So that's 11 guys in theory, right? If we count, it's 10 guys because Edey was one of the guys that had the commitment guys. So he essentially replaces Edey's spot if you want to talk about players, which leaves you 2 left, right? Yeah. So
it'd be like Alexander. Who else would be on the roster? Maybe they call up Kojo. Just give him a lifetime achievement spot.
After all that? Hey, man, listen, let's smooth that over.
I'm assuming they probably just stack up on bigs, though. If I were to guess, just bring 2 bigs.
Ken Birch?
No,
I have to ask.
I think Lyles is a lock. We're seeing Brissett plays now for sure. Lyles is a lock. And I think your point. I think of the non-NBA guys, the closest one that could probably be on the team is Alexander.
Yeah, because the person that we were debating about was Brissett before, really,
Yeah.
and now I think there's an easier pathway for him to play.
Craig, here's your thought about I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. And by the way, my apologies to the Shed family. I did not know it was Shed, the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that too.
Yeah. So
I don't think anyone knew. So sorry, Jamal.
Fans or whatever, or conference Houston's playing these days. Shed in this case here. So my apologies to the family, but I'm gonna get another one here. Never can pronounce his name right too. Kabengele in this case, did I have it right?
He's on the Spurs G League, but he was invited to the Canadian camp. I don't know if Trey wants to speak on that, and then we'll go to free agency, which seems to be moving along quite slowly.
Not a thing has happened. Like I don't see a pathway for him to really make the roster, just because Canada, like the big thing that they push is that their core team, they played FIBA together. They're going to play the Olympics together, and like 80% of those guys from the FIBA team are here. So I don't think there's a pathway.
Right. So in terms, sorry, I'm also looking at Woj on the side just to see it. Nothing.
Woj is the fourth member of this crew. Right?
Yes. Although Woj isn't doing anything, it's one of those, you have the dude with the stick saying, do something. Right now, obviously we have quite a number of new additions to the Raptors. So transitioning into, the Raptors portion of the show, we basically came away from that draft with the haul. I think we should start right away with the question marks of the roster. So I'm obviously going to start with with Bruce Brown. I obviously made a meme tweet about I'm back, but the question is do you think that I'm not in the room, I'm not a fly on the wall, but you look at Fanspo, you look around, and a Bruce Brown deal seems to be limited, especially with the second apron challenges.
Yeah.
Over under, what is the chance that you might see him on starting day? He's happy to be here.
Now that I've seen some of the outcomes, I would say it's probably like 50-50 now. If you asked me like 2 hours ago, I'd probably say like 30% chance he's on the team. But like most of the pathways that, like, ideally you would want him to be on any Warriors trade that use Chris Paul's salary and take him back and buy him out in that sort of fashion, or like a Zach LaVine, for example, if he's in a 3-team trade, utilize your salary. Cam Johnson, that same effect. But there isn't much pathways, and you absolutely need to come out from Bruce Brown with a positive asset. So they might just ride this out to the deadline, which is tough.
Some things, as much times things have changed, they still stay the same, man. It's not like a Raptor season where a guy should be traded and you still have to wait for the trade deadline. It's like 3 years straight.
What I will say is a lot of people keep getting trolled by tweets about Gary Trent signing for 3 more years. Those are all old tweets, people. There's nothing been as so far. Gary Trent is not going to be a Raptor, as far as we know. We're actually running out of roster spots, which is interesting because we came away from the draft with 4 guys. Obviously, not all of them are going to be guaranteed rotation guys on the regular roster. Some are going to be. Actually, we came away with more than 4 guys, but some of them are going to obviously be 2-ways. Some of them are going to be 905 guys permanently. We should probably start with the second round and kind of move all our way up to the main prize, we'll say. So I'll start with Ulrich, and then we'll kind of go to Shed and
Carson.
Well, I want to kind of focus on the actual draftees. No offense to the, just because I think, Carson, some of the others are, they will be 905 bound, but, I think they also, for example, some of the Exhibit 10s, they, we just need to see what they look like in Summer League, which is going to happen shortly. So, what did you think of, first of all, I guess the overall Sacramento trade that came, I like the Portland. The Portland part of that all was amazing. People think that I give this front office a lot of flack, and I would say that is one where I have to give them an A plus for that specific deal. So, what was your thoughts on the deal and your thoughts on? I mean, we could start with anyone, whether it's Ulrich or Shed, or Mobo as well.
Okay. Overall, in terms of that trade, I think it's one of the best trades they've made in probably the last like 3 years. It's a clear win. They utilize their cap space to receive positive assets. That Portland 2025 second is likely going to be another high pick in the 30s in a super talented draft. So it makes tons of sense. Sasha Vezenkov is a good shooter that fits with what the Raptors like to do. And Davion, I'm on the optimistic side with him. He shot the ball fairly well towards the end of the season. He has some on the ball juice where the swing skill is just whether the shooting is consistent or not. I think he can lead an offense. He could be a backup point guard. And if you come away with a backup point guard and potentially another high second round pick, it's a massive win, and taking on the 12 to 13 million dollars that they took in salary cap is inconsequential.
Right. I mean, I definitely agree. And also just in terms of the money that they took on, someone like Sasha, I don't really see it as a, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with that. I don't know. I think he's gone personally. I know what Grange said. I'm going to take Grange at his word, but also, who knows? Either way, I think that if you look at it, his following year is not guaranteed. So that's going to be very interesting long term because, he could be a trade chip at worst, or additive to a deal, and, let someone else try to buy him out. Or, I think if there's another team that he could play, I'm sure he wouldn't mind playing with Wemby. I wouldn't mind playing with Wemby either. So I think that that's where, from that standpoint, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on, that portion of the deal, but Davion Mitchell will seemingly be fighting Shed for that backup spot. And to me, I thought it was smart by Masai to lock up Shed on a deal that will allow him to potentially at least wait in the wings, run the 905 unit, especially when you have a more of a projecty player with flashes like Ulrich, or Ulrich. uh I think you want that point guard waiting in the wing so you don't run into a problem like last year where you have Dylan Harper trying to run point when he's not a point guard on the
You're
905.
wrong.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
Yeah, or
Yeah, I was about to say,
sorry.
please, Dylan Harper.
Sorry.
Please.
I keep it's a Freudian slip. I'm trying to talk it into existence. One day he'll be here. But yeah, so thoughts on that?
I don't know. I think with Shed and Davion, they've identified an archetype that they want out of that particular slot. The Raptors really struggle at the point of attack. Both of those guys are so elite defensively that they could slot and play with Emmanuel quickly in certain lineups. With Shed, the offense I don't think is at an NBA level currently. Just from a passing perspective, that's probably his best skill. I wouldn't say it's advanced, but he can find his man, work with a roller, and make plays from there. He needs to become a 3-point shooter. I don't see it for him off the ball. I will say from an optimistic perspective, because he was such a he had the ball at such a high clip. The type of 3-point looks that he was getting were off the dribble, him having to create the offense for himself, and that's just not going to be his life in the NBA. He's going to get catch and shoot, stand still threes. And if he shot that around 30 to 31% in college, which is mostly off of creation. If he can shoot at a 35, 36% wide open stand still threes, that's Patrick Beverly. And Patrick Beverly has played 10 years in the NBA. So I like the upside with him. And they have the potential with either, if they hit on either Davion or Shed, to address like a really big need for them, which is point of attack defense.
I think one other skill set that Shed has that I'm intrigued by because we really haven't had anyone that could do this since Lowry is just get in the lane and do drop offs, and he can do that. Like I since number 7, we have had nobody. I can't even think of one person saying showed flickers of it. Right? Usually, if someone Flynn, like take Flynn for example, he would usually go in there looking for his shot. He's not looking to dump it off to anybody. To be fair to him, that was his game. Fair enough. A lot of the other guards that we had coming through, that's not even somewhat quickly. That's not his natural game either. He's going to go with the floater for the most part when he gets in that lane. He's not looking to dump it off. I found at the end of the season he seemed to be getting better with that mindset, so I'm actually a little excited to see what it looks like this coming season. But that seems to be much more a natural thing from a skill set standpoint for Shed, and I'm looking forward to that part of his game the most. I think to Trey's point, the 3-point shooting, I think it will come. I think if you get enough time and work into it, he'll be a competent 3-point shooter. And all you need to Trey's point, all you need him to shoot like 35%. That's really all you want him to do. And from 31 to 35, really, for an NBA professional, that's a guard, that shouldn't take much time to do.
Agreed. I mean, it's one of those things for me where we need more game managers. And again, I even focus on the 905. We lacked that a little bit. Obviously, we had Noel, but Noel got injured a number of times. And so we need someone who's a little bit more stout and able to be that game manager at both levels. And, this is going to be, everyone helps everyone this year. I think it will be an interesting year. It's going to be a fun year. Mogbo was, when I watched his tape, small bits. I'm not, any sort of expert here, but one of the things that I liked is that he seems to have a really solid feel for the game. Obviously, the offensive game from a shooting standpoint does need work. I think he shot only 6 catch and shoots last year, not high volume at all. But at the same time, I think that when you're able to have the situational awareness enough to make passes out of those spots, it gives you a chance for something in the future. And next year, I don't know what his position is. He might be kind of like a 4/small 5. I think,
Can we just stay at that point for a second?
sure.
I found it interesting the language that Raptors brass, if you want to call it, they refer to him as a wing. So they're not making the same type of mistake, I guess I consider it a mistake they did with Precious, where they're
Mm,
actually placing him as a center. Well, I've always thought that Precious to me was always a wing, just masquerading as a center. So at least from that standpoint, they're considering him as a wing. Could he play some front court? Sure. But I don't think they're going into it like how they thought of what Precious, where it's like, okay, he's going to be playing center. He's 6'6", me 6'7" in shoes. I don't know. You take a pick. But they don't see him that way. Even though, if you think of it, he is the likeliest person taking the Precious role they think they want to see. But he's got a higher skill set on offense and awareness than Precious has. You just watch him play. It's like, okay, he knows what he's doing on the court offensively and defensively. I think he'll be fine. But I was very happy to see what he could do offensively. Just knowing where to be on the court, has pretty good hands. That's nice. Because we throw a lob to him, it's like, hey.
absolutely. So yeah, I mean, from that standpoint, I mean, we kind of have.
Before you get your thought on
I'll say a little bit on Mobo. I think of the second round picks, he has the highest chance of cracking actual NBA rotation minutes.
Mhm.
He's ferocious finisher, and with the shooting that the Raptors are gonna have, like with a quickly Jacoby, Grady, Kelly Olynyk, they're going to have tons of requisite shooting around him, around guys like him and Scotty, and he's going to reap the benefits of being able to score inside because of the extra space that he has. Mobo is a high level passer. He has great feel. He can put the ball on the floor and finishes really well. Like he was dunking at the level of some like a Zion Williamson, for example, on percentage in San Francisco. So I personally think like swing skill for him is whether he's going to be able to defend actual bigs. He played bigs mostly in college, but those bigs are usually 6'6", 6'7", and he was rebounding. He was grabbing 12 rebounds a game. If that rebounding translates in the NBA against 7-footers, then he's a playable player. That's where you get like I'm not saying he's Draymond Green, but I'm saying that's where you get a guy like Draymond Green who could play at 6'6", 6'7", because he has a long wingspan, he has the requisite strength, he's ferocious on the boards, and he has some of those same tools to execute that.
So let me ask you this, Trey. Considering I say this only because our coach seems to be a bit of a traditionalist. That's my theory with him. Can he play? Can he scale up to be a four at highest? Because I don't see him as a five at all. But could he play a four? Say he's in a lineup with Kelly O, and he's technically say Kelly O is the five. Even though I don't think he's a five either. But in this team, he's going to be playing five at the moment. Can he play the four beside him? Because he seems to be a good blending of skills with someone like with Olynyk. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly how you play him as a rookie. You would make him the four defensively, play some of those smaller four men. And then offensively he would be your center, where you let Kelly run as the hub, which he does a lot on the bench, and he would be in the dunker spot, running off of off ball screens as well to get him moving and getting him to the rim because Kelly, you saw similar with like Abaji, where they had that sort of chemistry and with their two-man game. I could see the same thing with Mogbo and what Ochai couldn't do when he get the ball. Mogbo can also turn that into another position for somebody else and more points. So I could see it working. I I hear the Precious comp a lot, but they're like vastly different players. Like
Yeah.
Mobo is an interior player for most part, an interior passer as well. Whereas like Precious was a perimeter player. He thrived defensively on the perimeter and offensively. That's where he wanted to play. Mobo wants to be inside.
So I guess the reason why I mentioned Precious is that I think the Raptors see him as what they thought Precious would be. Right,
Maybe.
right. That's where I think, at least in my mindset, they thought Precious. The fact they thought Precious could run the high pick and roll in this case or a high post, which I think all of us sitting there going like, that's not Precious in this case. He'd be making those decisions out there. He can probably do that in this case in a certain offense. He can do that, right? He has that passing ability, as you said. And I think they thought Precious could be that. When we're all looking at it, it's like, it's not Precious, man. We know better than that. You're putting the poor young man in the wrong spots. And I think this gentleman here is what I think they identify what they thought Precious could be. You know?
Yeah, agreed. He can do all of those mid post stuff, work off a dribble handoff. I think him and Scotty will actually play fairly well together because Scotty has the strength and size to play at the five in a lot of those bench lineups, and him and Mobile would be both of them can grab the ball and lead a transition break, and that's where the Raptors played the best last season. So I'm excited for him in terms of pick. Like my brain probably can't conceptualize like how he looks on the court, but I like what I've seen.
Yeah. To that point, going back to our Kelly and him, there's a third guy I think that will really mesh well with the two of them is Grady. Like that's the third guy. We knew Grady and Kelly pretty much clicked like that the moment he came. Backdoor passes, all sorts of stuff, and you put this guy with the two of them. I think you got something there on the bench, man.
Yep, agreed.
And the thing is you can at least trust him as a secondary ball handler, which is nice, if needed, like almost like a release valve ball handler who can't shoot. But that's not the worst thing because at least he can make the play, he can make the pass. That's one way to kind of get around some of the challenges that you have without shooting is if you can play make and if you can have the correct vision and spot the advantages, take advantage of them. I think it helps a lot. One of the things that you mentioned is, him and Scotty. Now, my challenge with that is that does Scotty mind playing the five? And also, I have concerns with Scotty playing five for any sort of length of time, mainly because I don't want him to ruin his body.
Yeah, that's fair. And with mobile, there's a pathway where his rebounding is and post defense translate directly from San Francisco, and he's taking on those five,
Right.
the five men. Um, it's just very rarely does a 6'6" guy translate in being able to
Yes.
defend other bigs. And the guys who have are stars in the NBA. So
There's
it's really interesting. He
right.
has the tools to do so, which is why I think it was worth the pick. And he fits what the Raptors are looking for in terms of their bigs. Like Dallas is the antithesis of what they want from it. Dallas wants their bigs to run, jump, and catch lobs for 48 minutes.
Right.
Whereas the Raptors, they ask their bigs to be hubs, to be able to create second side actions, to be able to pass the ball. and make decisions with when they get the ball, which is why a guy like Precious just like didn't work out, and which is probably why they passed on some of the run and jump bigs that were in the draft this year.
Also, from a motor standpoint, none of the guys that they got have motor issues.
Yep.
And that, I think, was a big. It was one of the things on my checklist coming out or coming into the draft that I was hoping for. As I said, I don't want. I was concerned, for example, Khalil Ware. I know Woodson really gave him a glowing report, but there were some times when I saw on his scouting report where he would have defensive lapses partly because of motor, and he would use his athletic tools to kind of recover. I don't really see that with any of the guys, especially not Mogbo. He's the Energizer bunny and a half, honestly.
The Shed.
Yeah, it's Shed as well.
Unbelievable.
We come with a lot of high motor, but also high character guys into what's gonna be kind of hopefully the new bench mob or the start of it. Before we get into the man of the hour, do you see Chris Boucher? Yeah, everyone seems to forget about the man, but do you see him lasting another year in Raptors land? Or because at the end of the season he was out of the rotation, and you almost, from his standpoint, you feel bad. But also from a trade standpoint, it's like, well, if you're not gonna play the guy, you're not showcasing the guy, that's not really helping you.
Yeah. I think the same thing will occur. I think he's occasional an occasional rotation piece, and he probably plays once or twice every 5 games, which sucks because they're developing a lot of guys. And I think he will probably just be salary filler like at the deadline to make a bigger trade. Like potentially you could use Boucher and Vezenkov salary to create a bigger salary and facilitate another trade to get assets back and use some of that cap space again.
Right.
Or if the Raptors do surprise, see Emmanuel quickly shows exactly why he was paid $175 million. They use that to acquire another piece.
Yeah.
Your point with the Boucher ties back to our previous discussion. You start thinking about Mogbo and where you play. Those transition lines with Scotty, and you have Scotty, him, and say Kelly, playing as a threesome. Like those three there, now all of a sudden now you get everything everybody wants, right? You don't have Scotty playing 5, technically playing 5. Mogbo could do all the dirty work that you're talking about, so Scotty doesn't get beat up that way and play the wing in this case if there's one to deal with. And the passing of everybody works well with the three of them. So that's a scenario. And you have catch and shoot guys with Olynyk and Scotty that will help in this case. The young man, now come in there. So they kind of fit well together in that lineup as well, too. So, and unfortunately, yes, if those guys are playing those transition lineups, there's no room for Boucher.
Right.
Where he would likely fit.
So, I mean, it's really interesting. I do think transition again for this following year is going to be how they thrive again, as per usual, but that's okay. I do think we have some better release valves, or we're collecting them. We'll see what happens with Gary. We gotta be...
Gary, man, Gary's like Undertaker. He just pops back up.
That's true. That is true.
Gary shot back in again. So
yes.
What I guess one thing to ask about you guys, you mentioned his name. I won't try to pronounce the gentleman's name, but Sasha, they just referred to as this case. To be safe, do you think he gets minutes like in the rotation or
Vezenkov?
Guy like situation.
I have my thoughts if he's here, but I'll throw it to Trey.
Yeah, I think if he's here, I think he plays. He does a lot of the same stuff from like a passing shooting perspective, and if you want your younger guys to get like creation reps, you need shooting around them to make it viable. So I think him playing makes a lot of sense.
Can I ask one more question? Then I'm not sure if this is on your list. Are you having discussion, Kenny, about starting lineups?
Well, we discussed it. I don't know I can't remember if we talked about it here. I think we talked about it offline, but okay. I think that if he's here, just because from what I've heard and his personality, and also I watched a bit of his game before he was on the Kings and a little bit on the Kings, it seems like, I mean, he might be in the starting lineup.
Okay,
Potentially.
don't steal my
Potentially.
thunder. I'm throwing it out there.
Okay.
Here's my
Okay.
thunder. Don't throw it out here. Who's the likeliest fifth starter? Him, Grady, GTJ. I'm gonna assume he's still here at the
Oh,
moment.
man. This dude.
Um, hey,
I'm
or
not, I don't, by the way, I don't mean him. I mean Masai.
hey, Bruce Brown or Mogbo. Those are the five. Which one of those
Oh,
five are
well,
going to
I think oh, that's true, Bruce Brown.
That sounds like hell.
You just leave it'll be like the Joker. You leave the fork or the pen or whatever. You say, come back.
This guy said, I'm going to give you 4 out of the 5 worst available options for the starting lineup.
Well, that's the options. Who else did I pick? I only didn't pick Walter to start. Like, so who else you picking? Those are the natural selections. Grady,
No,
yeah.
it's true. I think Grady's going to start. Like, barring a free agent signing, I think he's going to start. Towards the end of the season, it looked deserved, to be honest. He outplayed Gary the last, 45 days of the season, give or take. If he builds out physically this year and is able to take a lot of those bumps, it makes tons of sense for him to start. The Raptors are in a position where they're trying to make the playoffs or are talented enough to do so. So he should play and he should get as much reps as possible.
Now, I do think that Grady is someone that near the end of the year he was phenomenal. However, and I had a bet with someone too, and it won't ever be paid out, but I did say he was going to shoot at least 37%, 36%, and they said there's no way that a rookie, you should expect 32. So, but I think the thing with Grady that I would hope is that there were times where it would be him and Gary. They're the only dudes out there really of it's like him there, you know, Malik Williams or whoever else. Jemias Ramsey, and Porter, right? And Gary got the memo that it's his time to shine, and Grady is not aggressive enough. So that's the one thing that I hope is he needs to be more aggressive with his shot and understand that assignment. I think he will. I think part of it is just, he's a very much a team guy. And sometimes you can be that to a fault, but it's almost like he has more skill than he realizes at times. Yeah. And I like him a lot as a player. I think just in terms of raw skill coming in, he's probably in the last 10 years, he might be our highest level skill guy coming in, just in terms of being able to dribble, shoot, and play make a little bit. Not obviously able to translate into the NBA right away, but in terms of the other stuff.
Agreed. I like Grady a lot. I think he's a future starter. The stuff with him and Scotty, him zipping off of passes, him cutting off of what Darko's created, leads into what Scotty does best. And if you have to worry about a guy that's zipping off a weak side action that shoots as well as he does, you have to respect it and you have to respond defensively. And then that leaves open pathway for your 6'9", 6'10" all-star going one-on-one. And we saw that he won a lot of those opportunities.
So, okay, here's my question then. We're going to talk about offense. I'm going to do my best impression of Samson and Caitlin, and fail at it, because I could never, do all the terminology and all that. You're at the top of the key. You want to run, I would personally run inverted pick and roll. Sorry, I would run inverted pick and roll. Would you run pick and roll, or would you run inverted pick and roll between him, that being Scotty, and Grady, or which version of it would you run? Who's the ball handler?
You'd want Scotty to be the ball handler because it right now Grady's probably too thin to really do this. But
good point.
Same thing with Pascal and Fred did, because Fred was such a good shooter. If he popped, if he ghosted the screen, it created so much havoc that Pascal got a free running room to score, or B, because Pascal is also one of the best interior scorers in the league, Fred was a 40% shooter, was getting wide open looks from three. It was the Raptors' go-to play, was their money play, and they can achieve the same thing with him, with Scotty and quickly and Scotty and Grady.
That's the one.
Yep.
That's the one I want to see, right? Because
Yeah.
according to our man here on Open Gym, can't wait for you and Sky to get together. And I was still waiting after 3 months. It's like, well, when we
Yeah,
can get
man.
together?
Well, I think
Oh,
part of the challenge is, and I can't remember who said it might have been actually Louis Zatzman that pointed this out, um, is that at times Scotty doesn't necessarily, he's a good screener, but he doesn't like to screen in a sense. So how do you give him the carrot to to do that? Because I think Nick Nurse was onto something there when they were doing the three-man game between him. Basically, it was him, GTJ, and Siakam, except for insert Grady in the GTJ role. Um, and obviously Siakam's no longer here. So I think there's something there, but how do that's the one thing that I'd like to see because I think there's something special, especially with those three guys that you guys just talked about. That could be your lethal offense potentially that you could build into if they want to explore it.
yeah. I just think the Raptors need better guards that make it worth him
Yes.
doing that all the time. Like
Yep.
Joel Embiid, for example, the perfect example. He'd rather screen and then pop at the elbow because he has a higher chance of him scoring doing that than letting DeAnthony Melton run to the rim,
True.
to be honest.
Very true.
But when he had James Harden, he did so because James Harden was a really good guard. James Harden led the league in assists, and they worked very well together. They just need Emmanuel quickly really struggled playing off of screens and getting downhill and finishing. Like the floater didn't pop off like it was supposed to, which I think will rebound. But
I do think so too.
yeah, they just need better guards that warrant that one, the defense reacting the way it needs to, and two, for him to continue to screen as like he would as like a rookie off of Pascal Siakam, a player that he probably respected a ton.
Now I know it's F5 season. You know what I mean by that, Trey. But with that being said, there's nothing that's happening. But you brought in something that's really important and that I want to kind of play off of going back to the draft. Jacoby Walter. He gets it, I mean, doesn't always know what to do at the rim. We seem to struggle with that for but he gets all the way there and at least at the college level, he draws fouls. That's actually one of the reasons why I liked Ron Holland. And I was really high on Ron Holland is I was like, oh, at a G League level, he can draw fouls. I mean, let's ignore the whole Ignite fiasco this year. But Jacoby Walter, I think the three of us are all very, very high on him. I think we think that there's something there potentially. You have to add that. I don't know which of you want to start first because both of you are I think equally, going like this on the young man. So, Trey, I'll let you go first because you are the guest, of course. You're the guest of honor.
Okay. I thought it was a home run. Like in terms of outcomes, I when the Raptors lost the coin toss, and even the week prior, it looked like Indiana has a chance of being 15 or 16 or 19, and it didn't go our way. They lost the coin toss too. It sucked and felt like we were in no man's land. Jacoby is someone I probably would have drafted like anywhere between like 10 and 12, and he fell all the way to 19. He fits what the Raptors are trying to accomplish. Like they're double downing on movement shooting, opening up offense for their interior guys. And Scotty and say like a Yaka, for example, having the processing skills and passing ability to open up those guys when those lanes are open. Like perfect examples like Andrew Bogut. Andrew Bogut looked like he was a cast off, but popped as a warrior because he was able to make those reads. David Lee, same thing. But Jacoby, the 3-point percentage doesn't tell the story because he was shooting off of tons of movement. He was getting heavy attention from the defense also, and some of this is his fault. Is that his shot selection was a little erratic, but his mechanics are flawless. He's a high level shooter. And I think that's going to pop off in the NBA. One of the things that there's a lot of prospects that don't finish at the rim well. But usually the challenge for most of those is that those attempts are usually finite and they don't actually get to the rim fairly often. Jacoby Walter gets 2 feet in the paint all the time. He had a very high points per possession on drives against closeouts. He got to the rim fairly often. His free throw rate was elite. Um, he- Lewis in our pocket actually had a really good point. Getting to the paint opens up the opportunity for something good to actually happen. He doesn't need to necessarily score. You can develop him getting to the paint and dumping that off. And if the defense knows that he's going to dump it off, that makes easier opportunities for him to actually score. So I think Jacoby offensively is a smash hit personally. And defensively is where the projection comes from. He did fairly well in the combine in terms of like his agility score. He had a super long wingspan, but it didn't necessarily progress on tape. The thought process with him is that he has the athleticism, he has the requisite length. Can we make him stronger and teach him how to play defense? Because I think the motor was there in Baylor, just the results weren't.
Well, and also just the way that they sometimes use their guards at Baylor. I mean, you look back to the last year. Uh, Sometimes they put their guards in tough positions in terms of tasking them to create a lot, and they're okay with them taking very tough shots. We saw that with Keontae George, of course, the year before, Jacoby Walter this year. So I would not compare the two. I think that George is a much burstier athlete, but I think Jacoby's he's definitely a plus athlete at the NBA level. I don't think he's definitely like above average. And I think one of the things that you saw with Gary is that he struggled at times with his lateral quickness on both ends of the ball, but especially offensively, and that's what prevented him from if he can get to the mid range, he can get there, and he could do something right. But can he always get there? And I think that Jacoby seems like he can turn the corner a little bit easier at times. Um, it'll be interesting to see how we use him. I don't remember super well if Baylor ran a lot of DHOs. I think they're more that's not quite what they run in Baylor. But yeah, any thoughts on that? Or Beyond, you were going to say something actually.
No, I mean, I agree with a lot what Trey said. I think what I like what's happening is maybe a much more macro perspective with the Raptors is that they're actually focusing more on skill, and that's why I like so be it Grady last year or this young man this year, both of them have the potential to be three-level scorers, and the more guys that I can get that can have that ability to score in different areas, that's what I'm all about, especially if they're going to play heavy minutes. So I think he's a guy who might pop more than some people might think. Obviously George is the comp that we're looking at from last year, and we talked obviously with folks priors like Tyler Rucker and others that talked about the Baylor offense putting a lot on their guards. And then if you look at the bigs, usually those bigs are not coming out to knock down 20-foot jump shots, right? Like there's a lot of traffic going on in that lane when you play for Baylor. So will the numbers get better around the rim? Potentially, if we play with better guys can shoot in this case here. So some of that might just happen naturally. Some of it will happen naturally from the fact when he gains a little strength. I think he's 195. I wouldn't be surprised by the time he comes to training camp, he's about 10 pounds heavier. There's small things like that. Where all of a sudden now he's at 205 or 210. And now the shot that before will just roll off the rim because he's getting bounced. Now he's got a little 10, 15 more pounds. It might be an and one now. So it's the small things like that where I think it will help his percentages of that in splits. I'm not too concerned about that. The fact that I like is that he's a scorer, and I like the fact that he's a defensive guy. He's a two-way guy. I always look at guys like, okay, how many of these guys, if I'm in the springtime watching playoffs, how many of the guys in the roster you have now can you see eventually playing in a playoff series or a play-in series where it's a high leverage game? Can they still be in the court? And it's like he's a guy I think over time. I don't think it's going to take that much time. Where it's like, okay, I can see this guy being out here. He can play on the court on both sides, right? I mean, we saw Brown like just 2 years ago in a championship team playing minutes for Denver, right? Like get drafted around the same neck of the woods in this case. He might even get drafted a little higher. And it's like those guys you can get those guys in this case in the draft where they could just play and they're young talented players, and then once they can play on both sides of the court, great. And I don't know where he'll be 2 years, 3 years from now. Like, is he a starter on this team? I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me he ends up being a starter on this team, quite honestly, because I think he's got that type of talent. So I'm excited. He's one of the major reasons, besides Grady and a couple, and of course some of the other young fellas we picked this year, that I'm looking forward to the team. I don't know how well the team's gonna be, but I got something I can watch now.
True.
With a Tuesday night in the middle of February and it ain't looking good, at least I got some guys that can say, okay, let me focus on these guys time. Because that was rough last season. That was rough.
It was.
Especially near the end of the season, that was rough.
What I will say is it really was. There's a few other things that I want to talk about. First of all, I'll just touch on this. Because I think Trey's definitely feeling it, where this is a weird free agency so far. The biggest news is the Jazz are planning to waive Omer, and that's about it.
The only person that's changed teams really is Drummond just got signed to Philadelphia, but
there you go. Well,
2 years, 10 million.
That's the first. That's the first. Woj hasn't even tweeted it yet, as far as I know.
Wow, that's tough on Drummond, man. When he doesn't even deserve a Wall Street.
Only $11 million has been spent in the first hour.
So,
on a side note, though, like, is that a reflection of the
that's
second?
exactly, yes, yeah. So I was gonna get into that because it's the CBA is now, the rules are now coming into play, and I want you to make your point, but I'll just say I think that the players made a bad deal for the last negotiation. But sorry, Beyond, you were saying.
No. That's why I wanted to just ask you guys, like, if that's my instinct of it, like, because I mean, by this time, usually you got like about a dozen players already moved left, right, and center. It's like, we're not even an hour into it, or a little over an hour, and it's like barely anything's happened. So,
Drummond.
Right? Good Detroit boy. This is the see. So I don't know. Strange things are going on now, but we see how this plays out in the future. That's what I was just curious about that.
Is tampering over?
Did you see the Knicks trade?
True.
They did a podcast, and he was traded there like 2 weeks later.
Yes. And then the rest of the Nova crew. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean it's gonna be interesting. There's the middle class. I'm sure someone else is gonna make this point, but just like in real life, the middle class seems to be shrinking in the NBA, and they're really getting squeezed hard. There's guys like Gary. I mean, Gary, I don't know if he made a mistake last year or not. He might have to have a tough conversation with his dad and his agent to say, well, what happened? Should we have taken that player option? Because money seems to have dried up. And you also feel, I mean, the guys that are paid, you don't feel for because they're already getting paid. But it just seems like there's a hesitancy to really go over into any of the aprons. That's part of the reason why I think that Atlanta made the moves that they made. Any final thoughts on that in terms of you could even bring it back to the Raptors? Because I think, again, that's why the Bruce Brown of it all is challenging, and that's why I actually think that there's a higher chance that you'll see a Boucher trade over Bruce Brown because of his contract.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially. I think Bruce's contract is just still super valuable. If you can get $23 million off the books, that's a massive win probably for a team. You saw what the Kings was willing to give up to get off of like $12 or $13 million in bad salaries. So I think they'll still get a positive outcome. I think with free agency, it's like a combination of like the CBA is terrible for the players. Like last year was very good for the guys because you got Bruce Brown, Dylan Brooks, Fred VanVleet getting paid exorbitant numbers because teams had to get to the floor. That's now 90%.
Yeah.
And, but this year it's a lot stranger, and Paul George is probably holding off every single player pretty much. And until he signs, things won't really open up. But I think this is the new normal. Like teams are going to do most of their work through trades, and free agency will probably be for the lower tier guys that would be switching teams.
What's funny, a lot of people were saying that Malik Monk got he might need to fire his agent. I actually think that what he did was smart. You get your money. Hold on. Let me just say, because I don't think that a lot of people. I think he could have gotten a little bit more. So don't get me wrong.
Okay, okay. Well,
So,
okay.
but at the same time, do you really want to be waiting in line and then potentially you get screwed because of the musical chairs? And that's a decision that you might have to make. Now, Malik Monk, especially coming off an AC, was it his MCL or ACL?
Not sure.
But whichever injury that he had, it can be a little bit risky. But also, I think, when you're with, it's kind of like the Nova crew. When you have the Kentucky crew, you're with your boys, right? And
They
nothing
got three
beats
of
it.
them down there, right? Because they got Lyles too, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes. So that when sometimes there's nothing that beats home cooking, quote unquote. And and getting your money early. We will see, but I do agree. I mean, originally I thought he would be a perfect guy with the Spurs. That's just me.
Yeah, I thought Orlando. I thought you
That
give
was
him
the other
$25
one.
million. He has like, not saying he's going to be Brunson, but he has the chance where you get even plus value on that because he's never really had an opportunity where he's the primary ball handler.
No, no, no. And Orlando really just needs one more ball creator, shot creator.
Mm.
We will see. Since it hasn't, nothing's really happened. What do you think happens?
I guess if I were to guess, the Sixers get Paul George and they
Hmm.
also get KCP.
I keep forgetting about KCP. Yeah.
Yeah, because they have after they sign Paul George because of Maxi's super low cap hold, they still have $27 million if they get rid of Paul Reed. So
Oh,
I would give KCP that money, and you now have then you also sign Uber with the MLE, and you have one of the best, if not the best, starting five in the NBA.
Does Lowry go back or does he join the Nova crew as the grandpa?
Hmm. I think it would be cooler for him to win out in his
oh.
hometown. So I would say
That's how I see it.
he stays there with the Batman.
Are you referring to home cooking last segment? Yeah.
Yes, that is true. That is true. And then of course, since again, there's nothing going on, I have one final thing that I wanted to talk about. I ask everyone this kind of question, and just to see what people think. Every single year, you see free agency, you see team building get informed by the finals. Now, I will say this, maybe it's just me being biased, but the most balanced and well-constructed team other than the 2019 roster that I saw was actually this Boston team. So I'm wondering, that's what I got out of it. One of the things that I got out of it. There's a few other things. Obviously, the importance of two-way potential, two-way players, and having as many of those that can factor in, one through even potentially 8 or 9. What did you take away from the finals, Trey?
Um, a couple of things. I think bigs are more important than ever, especially if you have a skilled one. I think what made Dallas turn from like a play-in, fringe play-in team to a finals team was that Derek Lively was able to put real pressure on the rim, being a vertical threat. He was able to rebound very well, and he also had the skill to pass, which made things impossible for teams like Minnesota. He won a lot of those battles. Like if you can win the rebounding battle and win the possession battle, which I think the Raptors identified, but just didn't have the skill to execute this. You can you can be in a lot of ball games and win a playoff series that way. I think overall from Boston winning is rim protection, I think, which is still fairly valuable. But I think the point of it with the skill the NBA like players have, especially on the wing,
Right.
point of it that defense has never been more important. There used to be 5 or 10 years ago, like the Thibodeau defense. You ice the pick and roll, you have your elite big man, he'll be able to funnel this. The Bucks did the same thing with Brook Lopez. The average role player can hit a pull-up mid-range jump shot. They can make a secondary pass. Like defenses, you need people that can guard the actual ball and sort of deter people from getting to the rim as close as possible
Stop
because
the rim touches, the paint touches to
yeah,
close up options.
yeah, because then that leads to perimeter passes. Perimeter passes lead to transition buckets, and in the playoffs, those are like transition possessions are gold.
Right. Because it's also your easiest possession in a
Yeah,
sense.
easy.
Yeah, I mean it's it'll be interesting from a Raptors perspective. I think we're a little. Oh, you have
The Clippers signed KPJ.
okay. Oh, what is that? The guy that I'm thinking of?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, you are.
I mean, he could join Josh Primo, I suppose.
Team nasty. Jesus.
Hey man,
I didn't want to just follow up on Trey's point. I mean,
sorry.
I think a similar point. Just see if I can transition out of that.
Yeah.
I think mobile bigs to me was the thing that popped. To Trey's point in this
Right.
flop house. You have a guy that can move, it's large and can make decisions, but also defensively move like that. And in some ways, just bring it back to the Raptors in this past draft. In some ways, Ulrich might be the most impactful guy to see how his development goes. Because if he's able to
long
become
term,
what he becomes, that is the type of player that Trey just described. That's what you hope he can become, something like that. Because he has the offensive skill set on a foundational level. People said already. Defensively, if he can just figure out where he has to go, he can move. If he can figure out where he has to go from a defensive assignment standpoint, that is where I'm not expecting him to get a ton of minutes this year, but like next year, who knows? I'm talking about not this season. I'm talking about next season, 2025. That's the dude that could be very intriguing moving forward how this team develops because you need as many of those type of guys as possible. And I think what you see here is you have three bigs that can actually move around like that, be it Dallas or Minnesota, to some extent Boston. Even though old man Al ain't what he used to be, but he's serviceable enough, right? Like, he still can move a little bit. Like he's not like a stiff out there. So I think, in Porzingis, you saw how much it made their whole team more dynamic on both ends. So that's to me where it's at, man. I'm curious to see how he develops and all this because, I'm not saying he's going to be getting minutes. I mean, if this is Nick Nurse, who knows? He might be getting minutes like day two. I didn't think Kalopa was going to be starting by game three that year. It's like, wait, Kalopa's out here? What the hell? So, no, I don't think Darko's like that, but I am curious to see how his development happens this year if he actually gets a few minutes, with the big club.
Wait, KPJ got a player option?
Yes.
Sorry. But yes, no, I agree with you, Beyond. I just seen this pop up on my screen. I'm like, oh my goodness. Hey man, I guess it's good to be first in line. What I will say is that I mean I agree with you guys. I've said my piece on the finals. I boil it down to be a little bit more simplified, but it's the two-way play on both ends, and you need to find as many of those guys, whether it be in your development pipeline or otherwise. I think it's really, really important. So, final thing, I won't ask you about your thoughts on the Raptors because what I'll say is people should check out your thoughts on, your Raptors Republic podcast, which, if you want, I can, put in the description down below. Yeah, of course.
Man.
So,
you be all bashful and stuff like that, man. Link that man up, man.
no, that stuff is important. Also, independent media is important. You guys get way too much flack, for what I have no idea why, but but hey, it's part of the game, and the game is the game. Any final parting shots in terms of the Raptors or free agency, because nothing is happening right now, and we're just waiting for Clay or Paul George or anything that really happened.
Yeah. I think the Raptors free agency was the last couple of days.
Yes.
To be honest, I don't anticipate them making any deals.
No Gary?
I don't think Gary stays. Like the roster is pretty full. Like the only thing I can potentially see is that them and Gary work out a sign and trade to another team, and hopefully they recruit another asset so we can say we didn't lose Norm for nothing.
You got a point. You got a point.
Is that deal finally finished and consummated this case?
Right.
I was wrong on this. I was completely wrong. I didn't want Gary. I wanted a first round pick, but I was like, we cannot give this man this contract. But still a good player. He's still kicking around.
He is.
You guys never learn, man. You guys never learn, man. I tell you guys, I try to warn you all the time. And I'm always the bad guy. I'm Mr. Anti-Raptor in this case here. I try to tell you folks. You guys don't want to listen about it. I'm telling you.
I saw his contract. I think he got at the time of
It's 54/3, I think,
Yeah,
with
and
player options.
I'm like, all right, I wouldn't have wanted to give him that anyways. Gary, he had a good end of the season. He's gonna continue to get better.
I mean, the frustrating thing for me is always the player options for us,
Yeah,
because it's like, okay, if you're trading him within the first 2 years, you're not really getting the bird rights.
yeah.
What happened to Bobby, the capologist, the true capologist, and then it's like then you're waiting for the player option. So I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, do you think that speaking of former Raptors, not a shot at Gary at all, but do you think that the Knicks can beat on paper today the Celtics?
Yeah, 100%. I think they're gonna bludgeon them on the glass.
Right.
From a point of attack perspective, they have the wings that can guard both of the Jays. I think where I would still lean Boston is that the Knicks don't have a lot of ball handlers currently, so it's dependent a lot on Jalen Brunson, and Boston has literally the two best guys that could defend him. And then also you probably you probably just aren't guarding Julius Randle if you're Jason Tatum. So the spacing just becomes a lot harder for Brunson, and Boston has the shooting with KP that's still gonna open up the lane, whether OG defends him or not.
Well, okay, that's where I want to go to. I mean, we come full circle here. I ain't see your man show up against a Boston game in like 2 years.
What?
Because Tatum sees him and says barbecue chicken. Anytime he sees OG, he's like, oh boy, I'm licking my chops. It's like
I will say last season the OG didn't defend well on the Raptors, but it was very clear he phoned it in because immediately as soon as he became a Knick, he was top tier defender again.
I am looking forward to that matchup, man. I can't wait.
I hope that's the first game of the season. I can't wait for that.
Well,
Yeah,
I'll just say that.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I know a lot of people also thought he was gonna be the Siakam stopper, but 5 of 7 is not exactly stopping a dude. But I understand. Yes, sure, OG was not at full strength, but it is what it is.
He was in game one.
Yeah, hey, either way, both guys got paid. That's what I'm gonna say. So
girls get paid, man.
yes, but we'll definitely have more battles of that in the coming year. Trey, before we truly get out of here, again on paper today, Bruce Brown's still here. Boucher's still here. Gary is. We'll find out. TBD. What do you see next year? What is your high, mid, and will I don't know if you want to say the low point of next year of what they could achieve.
I think high end is like 41 games. That's like Emmanuel quickly pops off and proves them right. Scotty Barnes takes a leap from fringe all-star guy to like fringe all NBA, and he rises the tide, and that's 41 wins. I think the low end is probably like, again, last season, like 27, 28
Yes.
wins, to be honest. But
Yes.
I think the most realistic outcome is like 32, 33 wins, which I'd be very happy with. That's a scrappy team. You're still getting the 8th or 9th pick in the draft, which is what they want to accomplish. And then you're hoping that the lotto gods bless you with a top 4 pick.
Ace Bailey, or the man hanging out with RJ. Either one, it would be nice. Yeah, I mean, beyond what is your thoughts? I haven't asked you this publicly yet.
Publicly, I love that.
I actually don't think I've asked you truly.
No, you haven't actually. No, I'm less bullish than Trey on this team. I think they're going to do more like high end 37 wins, maybe. I think low end more like 24 to 25 losses. I mean, wins, I should say.
And they win 25 games. Boy.
Yeah, I'm just looking at how young the team is. We still, I mean, even though obviously we brought in guys that could play a lot more defense, but let's face it, they're still rookies. And how many games are these guys really going to play? So the core group that we're looking at, a lot of guys that don't play a lot of defense with that group. I mean, I saw a lot of 135-point games last year. Yeah. I think we're going to see a lot more this year.
I think the optimism comes in is that barbecue, they won their minutes.
True.
Irregardless of the record, they were plus 11 together. So I
That's a
think
fair point.
I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to be scrappy. I don't think they're going to be good. I think they're let me rephrase.
What are we working here? What are we working here with Scrappy? You're trying to tiptoe on both sides. Come on, man. Stand on it, man.
We have Simone Biles here on the Balance Beat.
It's Olympic season. Come on, man. Scrappy.
Yeah, I think I think the most realistic outcome is exactly what you said. I've said 32 wins for a long time.
Oh, we got news.
Oh,
KCP to Orlando.
Oh,
hey, give it up to the man.
3 for 66. It's not announced by Woj, but their beat guy said it's done.
Yeah, I'm like, Woj is behind, man. These guys losing out. It's like the TV deal.
Yeah, that's a fantastic pickup for Orlando. Yeah, man, you're all over.
I like that, man. I like that.
Man. You're the first man I heard say KCP to Orlando, so I can give you your due, sir. Props to you.
Yeah, I
heard Denver. I heard the Clippers. I heard going back to the Lakers. I heard all sorts of things, but I never heard Orlando.
They still potentially have $30 million, depending on how it's structured.
Yeah. The Bahamian fella?
Could be the guy. Yeah. So he's thinking Clay. Do you?
Not Buddy.
Yeah, no. Actually, I am curious where Buddy ends up, but do you think that they dip their toe back in the water and go for a round two?
I think Clay's a Dallas Maverick. I think like the Warriors offered him $20 million. So like my rationale is that you go to Texas, you take the MLE, you get to stick it to the Warriors, and you make similar money because they have no state income tax. Like
Florida doesn't either.
Dallas is
and Florida has Disney.
That is true. Dallas is a closer contender.
Yes. I think also Clay's family is on the West Coast, if I'm not mistaken. So there's that factor as well, the home cooking standpoint. For those that it really matters. Although money solves all problems.
Which Texas team you're referring to?
He's talking about your team.
Oh, I thought it was. I just wanted to be clear. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No.
I wasn't sure it was Houston or Dallas. I just want to make sure which area code.
I mean, it could be. There's another team that's in Texas that has money.
He would be good there too, actually.
That would be a lot of fun. But I mean, it's the most realistic outcome for the Raptors. I think it's 32. I think maybe they could punch up 35, 30, 37. To me, I'm factoring in things like injuries.
Fair.
That's the first thing is, I ain't seen a lot of guys in general, except for apparently, Bridges play 82 games on a regular basis.
It's like just that changes the season.
It might. We'll see. But so that's the first thing is that's a factor that kind of I'm plugging in. But the other thing too is I just don't know how you become the level of defense that we were. We had, what was it, 145 tossed up on us?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a professional level team. If you're, we're obviously a different team, but I don't know how you go from that to, and there was that stretch. Someone was telling me like, oh, that 14 games. I went through the 14 games. It was like 130. I was like, oh my goodness. I was like positive net rating. I'm like, we ain't defending well. So I don't think that we're mature enough as a team, or we have the offensive talent to pull a Pacers and outscore teams and win enough. Just even execution wise, I think that's just asking a lot from Barnes. I'm looking forward to just seeing us progress. I think we're going to look better. I think game to game, I just think at the end of the day, that execution down the stretch, being able to manage the games, it comes down to it. And my preferred outcome is, like you said, we're competitive close to the end, but we don't quite make it. And then we end up getting, kind of going the way of Atlanta this year, but we're in a better financial situation. Maybe, we get Scotty a proper co-star. So yeah. With that being said, I think that that is a pod, guys. I'll let Trey plug anything that he wants to plug. If he wants to plug it.
Myself and my good friend Samson Folk have a little known podcast called the Pull Up Tray Podcast on Raptors Republic. It's independent media with independent writers, um, talented writers like Esfandi Arbera, Louis Zatzman, Makai Bruce, and many others. We do a lot of meetups in Toronto. The next one we'll probably do now the draft is done. Will probably be the beginning of the season, but feel free to come out. They'll have more information and stuff like that. And thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. And we look forward to having you back at some point. We definitely will have you back if you're willing to come, of course. And I know Samson he's confirmed he's going to come back. And a couple of the others as well. Lewis, I know, is just the scheduling. He has little ones. And that gets tough. But we will figure it all out. Again, everyone check out link in the description. It's fun. I think that this will probably come out tomorrow. I have no idea. This might be outdated information. You never know. The world might be completely different. We might have, I don't know, Levine here tomorrow or something. I have no idea. So, I don't know if that's what anyone here is hoping for or not. But with that being said, it's been Basketball Rewind. Have fun. Take care, everyone. Stay safe and enjoy the summertime. Peace.